Call everyone to order for our meeting. For the purposes of recording, if elected members could wait for me to announce them before speaking and request that all mobile devices be either off or put to silent. Now, we have 10 elected members present. I think I have seen Councillor Dutta in the building, so he'll probably come a little bit later. And I think do we have an apology for Councillor Kitsos?
Yeah. We do.
Okay, so Councillor Kitsos is an apology for this meeting. And there's no leave of absences. So to start with, I'd like to do acknowledgement to country. And acknowledging country this month, I'd like to note that on Sunday, I spoke at Hobart's Invasion Day gathering, recognising the Council has expressed its support for the movement to change the date of our National Day of Celebration. Council first supported that as part of a motion in 2017, as I recall. And the Council at the time did so in recognition of how inappropriate it is for what is meant to be a day of national pride and unity to be held on the day that the British Army started colonising the Australian East Coast.
Lord Mayor, when you finish, please let me know. I'll come back in.
It is now widely documented and understood that the process of colonisation saw people killed, displaced from their homelands and discriminated against. And for this reason, the 26th of January is a difficult and divisive day for the Aboriginal community and others in the community who are concerned about this period of Australian history. Okay, confirmation of minutes, 16th of December. Would someone like to move those? Councillor, Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no, carried unanimously. Any transfer of agenda items? A couple we have, there being none. Item 4 is communications from the Chair, so I do have a few items for communications from the Chair tonight. So on the 6th of January 2025, the Non-Resident Nepali Association presented the City of Hobart with a gift, which is a kukuri knife. It's here. I promise not to use it tonight. It is a traditional Nepalese curved knife that is uniquely bent and versatile and has been used for centuries in the Himalayan region. It's typically associated with the Gurkhas, which are a group of warriors from Nepal, and it's an iconic symbol of strength, bravery and loyalty. And the cultural significance of this kukuri is a symbol of protection and courage. It's considered a symbol of protection and courage. The purpose of this gift was to symbolise everlasting friendship and cultural exchange. It's the NRNA's way of thanking the city for its generous support towards their community and their events. The NRNA hope to strengthen the relationship between our cultures and highlight the importance of mutual respect and cooperation. So thank you to the Non-Resident Nepalese Association for that gift. Second thing I wanted to mention was the Lord Mayor's annual report. So as I've done for about the last 5 years, as part of my role as Lord Mayor and the duties that are set out under the Local Government Act, I've produced the 23-24 annual report, and it outlines the work that's carried out by me in my capacity as Lord Mayor to meet the 8 specific functions and duties under the legislation. So some particular statistics this year include receiving and responding to 782 individual items of correspondence, 34 one-on-one constituent meetings, including 7 Mayor and the Chair sessions held at places around the city, 145 additional meetings with organisations, businesses and government agencies and politicians, and launched or opened 121 events, hosted 11 receptions, run 13 town hall sessions for schools, and provided 75 media interviews. So as we've done in other years, this report will be available on the Council's website, and it's also going to be attached to the minutes of this meeting as I'm tabling it at this meeting. And finally, I just also wanted to report to the Council that last Tuesday, we warmly welcomed a delegation from our sister city, L'Aquila, in Italy, and it was led by Mayor Biondi, and he was accompanied by the new Consul General for Italy in Melbourne. So while the visit was brief, we had a very constructive meeting to discuss upcoming projects and identify new areas of collaboration. In partnership with our Sister City Committee, we are supporting a sister school relationship which involves the St Mary's College, and working towards an artist exchange through the Salamanca Arts Centre. We're also going to explore new opportunities around university, science and tourism, as L'Aquila is very proud of their university city status and is also Italy's Capital of Culture 2026. So our relationship with L'Aquila is close to 30 years old, and it was established through the leadership of our Abruzzi community, who have been a fundamental part of Hobart's social fabric, and they've been fundamental to keeping this relationship going, and they're very active now with the new revitalised Sister City Committee. So as part of that visit, the Mayor presented me with this plaque, which is in Italian, but it basically says, "To the Hobart Municipality, in the name of historic friendship, strengthened by the twinning bond, confirmed by the solidarity expressed even in the darkest moments, the municipality of L'Aquila expresses feelings of deep gratitude and brotherhood, January 2025. So we'll put that on display somewhere along with the Nepalese gift. And that's all my communications this week. Thank you. All right. Now, item 5 is notification of council workshops. So on Monday the 20th of January, we had a workshop special. Oh, that was the Hobart workshop, wasn't it? Yeah, that was our first Hobart workshop, which talked about the terms of reference for the Hobart workshop, Collins Street transformation trial, monitoring and evaluation plan, and the council policy manual review. Item 6 is public question time. Do we have any questions, Sia? And none from the floor? No. All right, so we can move on now to 6.2, which is responses to public questions taken on notice. Would someone like to move that we accept those? Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Bloomfield. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. So we'll move on to our first report. Sorry, I've got lost. Which is, oh sorry, no. Are there any indications of pecuniary or conflicts of interest for any of the items tonight? There being none, we'll move on to the officer report, starting with item 10, which is the West Hobart local area. Oh, sorry, petitions. Okay, sorry, going back to 7, petitions, and we have item 7.1, which is the petition request for a public meeting.
Move the recommendation, Lord Mayor.
What was that, sorry?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Posselt. Any discussion? I'll put that. Oh, Councillor Posselt.
Lord Mayor, can I just ask a question of officers regarding the handling of this petitions moving forward? I noted that in the officer response it referenced accepting a hybrid petition, which most other councils don't accept. I was wondering if any other council in Tasmania does accept hybrid petitions, and if this is the intent to accept hybrid petitions moving forward for this council.
Look, I think would need to take that on notice to do some research. We're aware that some don't accept them. It would be an overstatement to say that there's the majority or most, so I'll have to come back to you on that.
So it's taken on notice. Thank you. Alderman Zuko?
Similar question. I think we can check our records on our council on whether or not we've accepted hybrid petitions in the past. So if we have, we've set a precedent.
Okay, so that'll come back as advice on a question. Alderman Zuko?
Yeah, look, I have a point that I want to raise, and I'm not being disrespectful to our officers, but I have raised this with the officers. It's in regards to the memo. It's in the attachment there. I actually asked a simple question, and my question was based, and I'm going to bring the memo up, my email up in regards to it. All I was asking is, can you provide me the relevant section of the Act that provides a process as for the elector poll and a particular timeline and cut-off dates as soon as possible? The memo that's been produced doesn't answer my question, and I actually even further put in another request in regards to that. I don't want to be detrimental to anybody, but I found that memo going onto the hub on a simple question was making out that I was asking other questions, and I wasn't. I was merely asking the relevant sections of the Act and just the process. And a memo's gone in there as if I've asked other questions. And I did send another email in regards to it about it. I don't want to make big issue, but because that memo is attached to this meeting, I want it withdrawn because that was not my question.
I'll take that as was that a question or a comment? Did you want to respond, CEO, or just note it for now?
Note it.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? I'll put that. Or Councillor Dutta?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just with regards to that report, I'm just asking a question. If the public meeting is conducted as per the requirements of the Act and there is an elector poll requested, can the council add a question to that if it wanted to through a motion?
Yes, it can, is my understanding, but
Thank you.
Maybe that can be provided in more detail from the CEO. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. So item 8, supplementary items, we don't have any, and I've already asked about indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest, of which there were none. So I'll move on now to item 10, which is the West Hobart Local Area Mobility Plan. Moved by Councillor Sherlock, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Discussion on the mobility plan? Or questions?
Question, please. I was just wondering if protected bike lanes were considered for Lansdowne Crescent, because I think that would be a really good option, given Lansdowne Crescent School right there, and it's a nice flat area of street. I was just wondering if protected bike lanes are being considered for Lansdowne Crescent.
Mr Vidal, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, no, through you. Sorry, let's get you. Through you, Lord Mayor. The focus of the plan was not necessarily to identify the treatments, but yes, to identify the function. So to answer your question, yes, Lansdowne is identified as a key bike route. How we treat that is obviously up for debate as part of the next phase. So yes for the function, the form of that's still to be determined.
Okay, so just to be clear, protected bike lanes could be something we have on the agenda for Lansdowne Crescent.
Yeah, through you, Lord. Yes, that's correct.
Great, thanks.
Any further discussion or comment? Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks to the team for developing this. As the colleagues around the table know, we're doing local area mobility plans across the municipality to identify opportunities to enhance walking, cycling, scooting and accessibility requirements for transport in the municipality. The West Hobart Local Area Mobility Plan was developed in response to a petition that was lodged about concerns of traffic volumes and speeds through the suburb, and I'm really pleased with the solutions that the team have come up with. The most controversial part of West Hobart, or the area where the highest number of concerns were raised, was the intersection of Arthur Street, Hill Street and Mellifont Street. And anybody who knows West Hobart or Mount Stewart knows that it's a really tricky place to manage. It has high traffic volumes, and it has been assessed before and considered for traffic lights. This plan doesn't specifically say whether or not traffic lights or a roundabout is the solution, but I'm really pleased to see it identified as the number one issue that needs to be addressed in West Hobart. It's almost impossible for people to cross the road from the senior citizens complex on the corner of Hill Street and Arthur Street just to go and buy their milk at Hill Street Grocer. And I think that's not good enough currently. I think that we should be supporting people who of all different needs to be able to move easily and safely and with comfort, not least our senior citizens who just want to buy some milk or a tea bag from across the road. So the solutions proposed look really promising, and I'd ask officers to consider when they do detailed design work whether or not they could consider reversing the flow of traffic within the Hill Street car park itself, which may open some further opportunities. But not only that, the report also identifies numerous sections of that high traffic area for both wombat crossings and continuous footpaths. Continuous raised footpaths in Mount Stewart, which will enhance pedestrian safety and comfort, and pedestrian crossings on the Hill Street sections in the form of wombat crossings are recommended. But there's also some really small, simple things in that plan, including curb ramps at Goulburn Street and Mole Street. Anybody who uses that intersection regularly will know that there are no curb ramps there, and it's actually very challenging to cross the road if you have a wheeled device, be it a pram, a wheelchair, a scooter, or a bike. It's difficult, as well as considerations of the safety of the slip lane turning up onto Goulburn Street. Those slip lanes are inherently dangerous. So our team's made the most of modern evidence and design with the aid of some consultants. They've come up with a great plan for us to move forward. I did note that Lansdowne Crescent, as raised by Councillor Elliott, has been suggested for a slow point, which is great because there's already a very natural slow point where buses can't pass anyway. So what the form of that slow point is on Lansdowne Crescent to calm traffic, along with the proposal for an area-wide speed limit of 40 kilometres an hour, will make pedestrians safer. It will enhance and increase the numbers of people that are walking to school, riding to school, and it will help Thelma cross the road and get her litre of milk to take back to her senior citizens complex. So commend this report to my colleagues around the table. I thank the team and I look forward to funding this in the next budget submission to go ahead to do some design work and maybe some implementations in the next financial year. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Coates.
Look, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I think it's for the benefit of those watching it in the room. I think it's worth highlighting, I guess, where the provenance of where this came from. The officers have mentioned, obviously, in section 4.4 of the report, the Mount Stewart section was included in response to the 2023 community petition titled "Slow Traffic Through West Hobart, Mount Stewart and Lena Valley," which was signed by 576 residents. I assume it's signed at the time that was submitted to council. This petition was submitted due to concerns regarding the volume and speed of traffic passing through these suburbs. And just for benefit, because we're now talking about this in 2025, but that petition is still alive. So change.org, slow traffic through West Hobart, Mount Stewart and Lena Valley, and I can report it's now up to 593 signatures. Now this petition calls for a whole bunch of stuff, mostly traffic calming devices on Mole Street, Hill Street, Mellifont Street, Mount Stewart Road, Bayard Street, Montague Street, Doyle Avenue, and obviously it calls for the 40-kilometre speed limits and the raised pedestrian crossings, Train Park, Hill Street Grocer, and near Mount Stewart Memorial Hall. What is interesting is the lead petitioner, I'm just trying to read here, my name is Ryan Passelt and I'm running for Hobart City Council. So it's lovely to sort of see someone who runs and then can talk to the action item that's come out of this petition. So look, it is still live. There are still people who are talking about this, but I think it's important to get on the record where this has come from and sort of how it's landed to this stage. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To the appropriate officer, in the survey, how many participants and respondents were there? We mentioned percentages. Do we have an actual number? It was in there, is it? There's a report? Just if I could be...
Would one of the officers like to identify that in the report?
I must have missed that. And there's another question too. Was the landlords, owners of the businesses who don't live there, were they mailed out for their opinion on the survey?
So yes, to the first one, yes, it's all the data's located in there, including visitors to the site, survey respondents, people that we messaged, and it did include businesses as well as residents as well.
So were they mailed out, through you, Chair, were they mailed out with the whole survey?
No, there was a letterbox dropped, yeah.
But we had this problem with the North Hobart recent study where there might be letterboxes, but there's a lot of business owners and landlord owners that don't live in the suburb. And I believe that this is going to be rectified by now an additional mail out to resident people. So should not this have been the case, and why not? Did it not happen?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kelly. Just, I did let you run on that, but normally questions have to be without too much preamble, and so yeah, I thought you were actually doing your intervention, actually, but your contribution. Sorry, Mr. Vidal, did you want to? It's a bit speculative, or Mr. Noy.
Yeah, look, if they are operating a business, obviously they will have got the letter drop, but we don't, as a process with these plans, we don't necessarily write to every property owner that might not be residing in the study area.
You want to say something?
I can speak to the motion now.
Speak to the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for that information. Look, I think we haven't learned really much from the mistakes of Collins Street, where some landlords, as I'm understood, were not contacted. It happened again. We didn't learn from the North Hobart study that's just been done that landlords who own property and who are major players in the game weren't advised, and here we have it again, where landlords who've got a lot of skin in the game in these areas know nothing about it unless they were walking in the street or if they were an owner-occupier of the business area that we have. So I'm deeply concerned that this seems to be a recurring theme here, that we consider landlords not to be relevant in the discussion of the property. Now, to me, the major stakeholders would go residents, people who own property there, residents, landlords, the business operators, and also the people who rent. We're all stakeholders. So to not include those business owners is I think, a huge mistake. And, you know, it's very, very concerning. And if that's the case, I'd like to move an amendment that the landlords are to be contacted and given the opportunity to respond prior to this report. It would seem quite logical for that to be. So that's the motion I'd like to...
Deferral motion?
I think that would probably be best to do a deferral motion on it until we get all the stakeholders' opinions in the report.
Okay, sorry, it's a procedural motion.
Can I just ask through you, Lord Mayor, and to Councillor Kelly, what landlords are we talking about? People who own lots of property, or people who own businesses or shops, or just to clarify, which landlords are we talking about?
This question was to me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's landlords who own property, for instance, it might be a shop who doesn't live in the area. It might be a person who's Airbnb. It could be a person who's got vacant land. All of those are stakeholders, by definition, I would have thought, unless, please, someone explain to me if I'm not correct of the definition of stakeholder, and an important person. And quite often you'll see that there are very long-term landowners, landlords who own property. They might not reside, they might not get the letterbox drop, they might not see the pop-ups in the street, which are all good things to do, and I acknowledge that. And there's some good work done there. I went to a number of these in the North Hobart study. And but the point I'm making is it would seem to me that a major stakeholder is not being included in this discussion to make some very, very important decisions here. So therefore, I request that is done and the motion is deferred.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Alderman Bloomfield? Okay, so that's a deferral motion, which is procedural, so we won't have any further debate on it. All those in favour of deferring this item say aye. Aye. And say no. No. Show of hands, all those in favour?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Coates, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Kelly.
And against?
Against, I am showing Councillors Dutta, Councillor Passelt, Councillor Lohberger, Councillor Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
Further discussion. Is this a question, Councillor Posselt? Yeah.
It is. Thank you, Lord Mayor. And perhaps there might be multiple teams that wish to answer this, but what opportunities were given for people to contribute their feedback through the consultation, and how was that promoted? So was it just a single letterbox drop, or were there other means by which people were notified this was occurring and given an opportunity to respond?
Mr Vidal, did you want to just briefly outline that, and maybe could you identify the section of the report where this might be? I presume some of this was outlined, was it?
Yeah, it is, through you, Lord Mayor. So it's on page 9, which identifies the methods. So there's a number of different ways. The engagement phase through letterbox drop, paid social media ads. So we did a broad brush, paid social media ads for people living in and around Hobart, particularly focused on West Hobart and Mount Stewart. We did it through the schools, so anyone with a connection through the schools, there was an opportunity to advertise through that. We did other marketing materials, so through things like letters in shops and things like that, as well as targeted emails to key stakeholder groups, whether they've, through RST and things like that. So there was an opportunity for a bit of a broad sort of assessment. We allowed people to sort of provide input through in-person workshops, through the Your Say interactive page. We did get a variety of feedback from both residents as also business owners and other stakeholders as well, so it was a wide variety. It is targeted at those, though, to answer, it is targeted at those that do live in West Hobart, being it's for West Hobart people that live there, for those who access everyday West Hobart. So that was certainly where our energy went as far as targeting those people for feedback.
Just a question. From what you've... so just a question. I'm really interested to hear the types of survey materials or questions and target groups. However, if I lived in Melbourne and owned property in West Hobart, or if I lived in Bellerive and owned property in West Hobart, it appears to me that I would absolutely have no idea this was going on. So I do feel that there is definitely a gap, and I'm questioning just exactly how would those people actually ever even learn of this until it was a done deal.
Is that a question or just a statement?
It was a question. I want to know. I want to know if I live in Bellerive, if I live in Melbourne and I have rental properties, how would I know?
Who would like to respond to that? No, take it on notice, or?
I think the answer to that question, they may not know unless they are have got someone engaged to manage their property and to look after their interests.
So maybe real estate agent or others, yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Dutta.
Just a question through you, Lord Mayor, to the appropriate officer. It is my understanding that reading the report, there's about close to 6,000 residents in West Hobart. Now, is this a representative sample? Because in recommendation 1 states, council notes the outcomes of the public engagement. And I'm just worried about the public engagement so that it doesn't become another issue where we're fighting this, constantly this issue. So my question is, was this a representative sample of the 6,000 people who live in the area, sorry?
Mr. Dow?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, it is a representative sample, so it's about 10%. It was again, from who we heard from, it was reasonably consistent as well. So it wasn't like there was a polarising views across. It was reasonably overwhelming. So the support for the treatments as well. So who we heard from, it was representative. Across businesses, across older people, younger people. So I think for us, we were very comfortable with about that 10% sample that we heard from a cross-wide, cross-section of the community. That we were comfortable that we heard from the right people.
Alderman Bloomfield?
Sorry, just one more question. Given we've possibly identified a gap here, what percentage of the properties in this area are actually rentals? How big is this gap?
I don't think we've got that data. That would be hard to... My understanding... someone else might prefer to answer, but I think ABS would potentially show how many rentals are in a different area, but I'm not sure. Would anyone like to answer that?
Yeah, it's around 30%. It's probably higher in West Hobart, and you'd be able to get the data from land tax valuations, most likely, like residential land.
Yep.
It's around 30% though, probably higher in West Hobart.
Renters, yeah.
Investment properties.
Lord Mayor, I find it extraordinary that we can always...
Harvey.
Councillor Harvey, that's me. I find it quite extraordinary that we always challenge the engagement process. And I don't get it, because we're engaging with the people who live there. I don't care what absentee landlords who live in Brisbane or wherever say about the treatments that might occur in the suburb. They don't live there, it doesn't affect them. Will it affect their property value? It'll probably improve their property value. But when you look at the methodology, the main methods used across the engagement phases for the project were community workshops, pop-up information sessions, interactive maps, surveys and polls, contacting the schools, emails and social media, letterbox drops, marketing materials. You can't get everybody to engage. So I'm not interested in those who didn't bother or who didn't find out or who don't even live here, what they think about treatments that might impact the safety of people using the streets in this particular area. So what Councillor Kelly is asking for me, is particularly irrelevant. Maybe shopkeepers who live in the area, who have businesses in the area, but absentee landlords who don't live there don't really have the same sort of stake as people who live there, whether they're owners or renters of property, but they live in the area. Therefore, they have a stake in the game, and their opinion is what I value far more than someone who doesn't live here. So I think we just need to be careful here. We don't spend extraordinary amounts of money trying to track down the 30% or whatever the figure is of landlords who don't live there. If they're not paying attention, that's up to them, but trying to track them down so we can ask them whether they agree or not to something, or what are their views in the area. Their views will be different because they don't live there. So I'm not overly concerned that we didn't find all the landlords and ask them what they think.
Alderman Bloomfield was up first.
I'm just curious, if we can't track down people who own property, how on earth are we collecting their rates?
Okay, I think that was a rhetorical question. Councillor Coates.
Thank you. I believe I've already spoken to you, so just a quick question through you, Mayor, but just to confirm before we sort of get to the voting on this, some of the metrics, I think there's a bit of a discussion about consultation. Can I confirm that across the two face-to-face workshops, we received feedback from 19 people in total? So I think it was 9 in workshop 1, 10 in workshop 2, through you to be appropriate.
Mr. Dow.
The workshops, which is one method, yes, there was 19 across the 2 workshops.
And also for those that couldn't make the workshop who just provided their answer to the quick poll, could I confirm those 43 individuals, only 60% said yes, they were supportive?
Mr. Dow.
I think where we've landed 73%, we're both yes and somewhat supportive.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I'm really pleased that there's been a little bit of focus from Councillor Harvey here on the actual residents. I grew up in West Hobart. I rode a bicycle. Over the years that I lived there riding a bicycle, I grew less and less keen to go on the street because of the rat runners coming through. This was before, this actually precedes the roundabouts. The problem became really quite bad in the 80s, and it stopped me riding my bike. I stopped riding my bike because really it wasn't safe. I used to like to ride up to the skateboard bowl and back, and that included going on Hill Street, which was very difficult to get across and really unsafe because of the huge volume of cars coming through during peak hour, which happened to be, you know, the after school time when I was playing. So I'm really pleased about this local area plan. It looks great. It's certainly designed for the people who live in the suburb. It should help to make their lives a bit easier, and it should certainly make their lives safer. And I think that should be the focus for us in this room tonight, and that's the focus I'll be looking at, Lord Mayor, and I will be voting to support this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Kelly.
Question, if I may. Just a clarification, for this survey and for future surveys, to put everyone in the picture here, landlords who do not reside in the area are not considered to be stakeholders. A simple question. In other words, absentee landlords who might not live in the area but receive rates, which seems to be a very easy way of sending information out, by the way. Are they stakeholders, yes or no?
Yes, of course they're stakeholders, and they had as much right to fill out that Your Say survey as anyone else.
Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to flag that, in my opinion, we focus on the engagement and our approach to it, as I've said this before, because we have no credibility when it comes to engagement. So we have a lot of trust to build in that space. And I am troubled to think that we don't care about what the people who aren't paying attention think. Because I was wondering if we would also include people like the elderly people or people with disability or children in that. Do we also not clear what they think because they're not paying attention? I think proper engagement is reaching out to people in the way they need to be reached, because that's how we're meant to be representing everybody. And we need to care. We need to do our fair share when it comes to reaching those people, because if we don't care about people who aren't paying attention, yes, we might be able to lump landlords in with that, but like I've said before, there's plenty of other people who aren't paying attention: elderly, disability, children, people who are struggling to actually afford milk and bread, people who have language barriers. They're not paying attention too. So applying that logic's pretty flawed.
Sorry.
I just have a question.
Yes, Alderman
Lord
Zucker.
Mayor, I'm being interrupted over here.
Sorry. Councillor Kelly, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much. I accept your apology.
Alderman Zucker.
I accept your apology. Thank you.
I didn't ask him to do an apology. I just
Well,
asked him
you
to
know,
stop.
like it just gets monotonous after a while, Lord Mayor, when you get up here and try and speak.
Okay,
And I don't,
we're all
you know,
listening now.
Thank you.
Alderman
Good.
Zucker.
Good. It's not funny.
Alderman Zucker.
Thank you. I just have a question, that's all, Lord Mayor. Through you to Mr Vidal. I just want to reconfirm that the words used in regards to the feedback from the community in West Hobart was, we only targeted those that live there. Is that correct or incorrect?
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, certainly was the target. It was the residents of West Hobart and Mount Stewart. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Further discussion? I might have a few questions and a couple of comments. Can I just ask, perhaps because this has come up a couple of times, is it possible for our engagement team to, I think these LAMPs or local area plans are quite common around the country. Is it possible for our engagement team just to perhaps review a couple of them, you know, from like cities, to see whether the engagement we're doing is kind of similar, at a similar level, or whether any cities are actually mailing, like posting all ratepayers, as well as these other methods, and you can take it on notice, but I'm just wondering.
That's all right. And I might get Abby to sort of talk to some of that more broader sort of communication and engagement processes. But as far as the process of local area mobility plans, they are targeted at the area. So those that live, reside, go to school, undertake work, so have a business in the area. So that's certainly the target. That's not to say we can certainly improve and do all that, but yeah, that's the national standard as well.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so others do the same.
I think just having a couple of, if we could review a couple of other cities that have done them recently, maybe Launceston or Newcastle, or like just to see, because I think the other elected members that are asking questions, you know, I think it's important for us to understand whether, you know, posting the entire suburb is a kind of something that other councils are doing. Because if it is, and we think it's important, then we'd have to factor that into our budgeting for these kind of projects. But if it's not common, I think it'd be helpful for us to know. So that's a question, sort of the question. The second one was just around, Councillor Elliott mentioned that children, the elderly and the disabled folks might have missed out on this consultation. Did this come to the Access Advisory
Point of order, Lord Mayor, that's a misrepresentation. I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. That was what I understood you to say.
No, it's not what I said.
Okay, well, I'm interested anyway. Like, in terms of children, elderly and people with disability, were there any particular initiatives targeting the school, going to the elderly people's home up in West Hobart, or bringing this to our Access Advisory Committee?
Might take that one notice, Lord Mayor. Yeah, certainly the first two. So certainly the retirement home and the school was certainly engaged, but the Access Advisory Committee, I'll just take that one on notice.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I'm really pleased to see this document, this plan, because West Hobart has been the focus of this council for a number of years, but it's tended to be in bits and pieces of troubleshooting, particularly around the Rat Run. And I know when I was first elected member, there was a lot of focus on Hill Street and getting a pedestrian priority crossing across Hill Street. And the reason for that is the traffic data showed that during, I think, about 2 hours of the peak period, a car is coming down Hill Street every 8 seconds. Like, it's just constant. And unless there was some sort of pedestrian priority crossing, it was almost impossible for people to cross it. Certainly, the parents had no faith in sending their children out to kind of have to try and navigate something that was, you know, this constant stream of traffic. When we were doing work on those initial Hill Street improvements that were made, probably around 2016 or so, I reckon, 2017, we looked back at the old West Hobart Traffic Committee. Mr. Noy can probably remind me of what they were called. So we used to have traffic committees in all of these suburbs. And I think someone looked back at the minutes of the West Hobart Traffic Committee for 10 years before that point, and, you know, these issues have been raised by communities. There's been petitions there's been letters, there's been just, you know, an incredible amount of frustration from the community for these issues to be tackled. And in this plan, a lot of those things that have been on the agenda for many, many years are in a comprehensive plan that is very transparent to the community. Hopefully it can be easily accessed on a website, and hopefully the council will continue to work through the plan until all of these initiatives are done. So I think it's great to actually have done this in quite a lot of detail and quite systematically, looking at the history of what we've done and talking to residents today about what's important. I also just want to raise, just in terms of what landlords or property owners might think about these kind of issues. I think it is important to recognise that once a suburb has what's called a high walkability score, and these days there are kind of all the real estate agents promote the walkability rating of a suburb. And so walkability includes the ability to walk around, how pleasant it is, how safe it is, whether there are street trees. And so real estate agents are promoting these walkability ratings for different suburbs, and the higher a suburb becomes walkable, it becomes a much more, it actually improves property values. So I would have thought many landowners would generally see these kind of upgrades as just part of the modernising of West Hobart and bringing it into line with like suburbs all over the country where those sort of high walkability scores are established. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to support the motion tonight. Alderman Zuko.
Yes, Lord Mayor. Look, I wasn't going to say anything on this, but I have to. This is going to sound like something repetitive, but I have been in this chamber for a number of years. I've been in workshops most recently, going down the track of what community engagement is all about. I understand that we want to target those that live in West Hobart, Mount Stewart and all that. I understand we might send out a letter or we might post something, but there are stakeholders, and this is the whole thing that we tend to forget, all the stakeholders. I might not be living in Hobart or West Hobart right at the moment. I could be working for a couple of years in, as Alderman Bloomfield said, in Melbourne. I still have skin in the game if I own a house or a business or a property in West Hobart. There's a lot of people that actually leave the state or work intrastate for a period of time and come back to live here. So it's not just those people that live in an area or just conduct business in an area, it's everybody. I have stated this in workshops, I've stated this on this floor, and no doubt you can go back and check the tapes. The community engagement is engaging everybody, not just a select group of people. The point was made about tracking these people. Well, if a person is a property owner, the easiest way to track that person is through the rates notice. And I've said it in here time and time again. They are actually the easiest people to contact. There's no challenge to it. No challenge at all. And to consider that because I go and work in Melbourne or Sydney or overseas and do some work for charities or something like that, and I'm away from the place for a while and I rent my house out, I have no say. I do. I'm a stakeholder. I'm entitled to know what's going on because most likely I'm going to come back here and live. And I just don't get it. We fail at community engagement. And to think that we've got to see what the middle of Siberia does with community engagement, it's what we do with community engagement is important. And so many times in this chamber we say, well, let's be the leaders. You know what? We were the leaders once in community engagement a number of years ago, but we have tended to stray off it. I'm sorry, I cannot support this. Again, we fail to go down the track of speaking to all the people. There are a lot of issues, as the Lord Mayor raised, with West Hobart. I was around those days when we were trying to fix some of the major problems. And before a lot of people have even been on this council, we talked about the serious issue in Arthur Street and Hill Street, and we tried to get lights put there. I remember I was at the community meeting. I've been to a number of those community meetings in West Hobart, and in particular, right next door, there's a facility that there are a lot of elderly people there. We fought to try and do something there at the time. I understand that we want to look at the big picture, but there are some things that we should be fixing first and foremost before we look at the big picture. And one of them is how we engage with our community, because I'm sorry, this council fails.
I've got a question. Do we have a list of all the rented properties in our suburbs, or we just have lists of ratepayers? Through you to the GM, CEO.
List would be of ratepayers.
Of ratepayers.
Yeah.
So in order to find the landlords, we'd need to put a notice in every single ratepayer's notice, because we don't know who the landlords are, so we can't say that house there. We need to contact, it's a question. So we would need to send a notice to every single ratepayer, regardless of whether they're a landlord or they live there.
I think that
if we want to follow that model. Have I emphasised it enough? Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wasn't going to speak as well, but I am compelled to. I just want to make notes with regards to the recommendation. The first recommendation simply states, the council notes the outcomes of the public engagement. Now, it is my understanding that there is a particular methodology that the officers use, which is a standard practice. And so they followed that particular methodology to gain the data or the information. We, the council elected members, did not in any way put a motion in here to say, now, we want you to do this, this, and that. All what we are noting, I think, is my view, we are noting the outcome of the public engagement conducted by the officers. And we as elected members are expressing our concerns that if you're going to do that next time, please take into account the other points that have been made by a number of elected members. Maybe the methodology would change to incorporate landlords, children, etc., etc. Point number two I make is this, that the engagement for me, as was made earlier on, children, elderly, those who don't speak the language, maybe like myself, don't have the English language because it's my second language. What happens in my communication with a number of these people and my own personal experience when I came here, I was of the view that the council with its expert officers know what they're doing. I have no knowledge about these things here, and therefore either they will consult someone who's an expert and use the expertise internally to bring about these changes. So for me, all what I'm saying here, in point number one, in public engagement, if that is the only method we're using, maybe the comments made here today should be taken on board so we extend it and include other ways to make sure that we don't leave out some of those people. Point number two, the council endorses, and I am very happy to endorse this report. I want to thank the staff and the consultant who have put this together. There are a number of issues in there, and the projects have been outlined. And I think it'll be wise for us to consider these projects, these action items, and include them in our budget. So therefore, we are doing those projects we think needs priority. So therefore, I will support this, and I believe that the engagement conducted may have its questions, but I only hope that we are simply noting what the officers did, and it wasn't we as elected members. Thank you.
Alderman Bloomfield, you haven't spoken? No.
I feel we need to remember that this room acts as a board. Our job and role is to take responsibility for the reports that come through and make judgment. And if we see a gap of 30% of those affected not being included in a survey, we need to speak to it. In particular as well, I also am a bit concerned about the potential influence of an earlier survey presented by one of our representatives here today. And what influence would that actually have on that? And does that not conflict them when they come here to put judgment. If you have a survey you have lovingly put together, conducted all of the questions and got data back, would you not be so much in a conflict position? So that'd be something else that I would really like to have put to this room as well. I don't expect it to be answered today though. But ultimately, what frustrates me is that I really do like the fact that this report has been put together. I do like that we're getting some great ideas out and so forth. I simply don't like that we figured that some people in the community didn't matter, because I don't feel that's right. I also feel it's incorrect to insinuate that we can't identify landlords when in fact one of our elected members here already has identified that the land tax payment, which is simply another database we could actually interrogate, would actually merely tell us who are those who are not primary residents who are renting out their properties. So I just find that there are flaws that really should have absolutely put together the deferral that was requested and refused. So as a result, given the flaws are quite deep in this case, despite the fact that we do have what I feel is overall not a bad report, I feel it does need to go back to the keeper until it's done properly. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
I'd like to sum up now, Lord Mayor.
Have you spoken before?
It's context with a question.
You've spoken, I think.
More of a question, I thought.
I thought it was a question and you spoke, but that's what I noted it down as. But
Who sums up?
No summing up
Well,
so much.
I'd like to comment on it. It was a question.
I've got that you have spoken, but maybe if you could maybe speak briefly and
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you. Look, I cannot support the motion tonight. I'd just like to reinforce that collaboration with the public involves people who own land, whether they're there or not. I have 9 tenants in North Hobart. If I was away for a year, which one day I'd like to, and if I'm still on council, that means there's a possibility I would know nothing about it. The decisions I make, and there's other landlords too, who may not live in North Hobart or in the municipality, are profound. You know, we make big decisions, we care for the tenants, and that has a big influence, especially in places like North and West Hobart. And I just cannot understand, just to keep everyone happy, a simple mail out, even if it did double up in the ratepayers who might not be business people, it's not really that hard. It's not really that hard. And I'm just so disappointed to see that, you know, to hear fellow councillors say they don't care. They just don't care about landlords who don't live in West Hobart. It's just so sad. It's something we could do so much better. I'm disturbed by potential conflicts of interest by other councillors who are in very, very sketchy areas here. That's not clean as well. Once again, I believe tonight we've let the people of West Hobart and the ratepayers of Hobart down in a very big way, and it could have all been avoided by a simple mail-out.
Okay, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I am a little bit disappointed because I've also been checking off who has spoken, and I do consider that Councillor Kelly did speak, and so I think that's a little bit against process and procedure just for the future. I think it's important to keep that noted. I'd like to thank the staff for your work and the considerable amount of time I assume it would have taken to engage with the community. I do have a question that I'd like to ask. Could you please advise me when this particular council voted on a community engagement framework, please?
CEO.
Thanks, Deputy. So, look, I don't think this council has. I just pulled up the current version that we have, and it's dated 2020, so it wouldn't have. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Was that correct? Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, through you, Lord Mayor. There's the policy which is due for renewal at the end of the next financial year, but the framework was updated mid-2023.
Okay. And, oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, you go.
No, you go ahead,
No, it's okay.
Deputy. No, that's right.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to know that, yeah, we as a council, this particular council did look at the community engagement framework in 2023, and we did look at various different aspects to do with how we would engage with the community. And I do note that that there was the IAP practice framework that we as a council were going to engage in when we talk about community engagement. And I think the suggestion was made before as well that the national standard under which we operate for community engagement was who live, who resides, who works or goes to school in that area. So thank you so much for clarifying that. I did find it rather interesting that the question was proffered that did we do consultation when clearly there was an engagement report there. And I would like to just once again reiterate the different phases and the methodology that was used, and I'd like to commend the staff on doing various different approaches to actually receiving that data. I am cognizant of the fact that individuals around the table have differing opinions with regards to our engagement processes, but solely looking on this particular one, and I'm only talking about this particular report that has come to us today, going on this particular report, going to community with workshops, pop-up information sessions, interactive maps, surveys and polls, contacting schools, email and social media, letterbox drops, marketing materials, I think was a really broad way of trying to get that engagement. And the snapshot is already there within the report, but I think the numbers might also speak for itself with regards to the people reached for social media, which was upward of 42,000. Letterbox drops was 1,500. Face-to-face was 34. There was 3,800 newsletter recipients. Visitors to the web page was close to 2,000. Interactive map contributions was 154. Survey respondents 105. Quick poll 43. So that seemed to me like the engagement was widespread. I can understand and appreciate the other comments that have been made around the table with regards to further elaboration, but as a researcher I can also appreciate that sometimes not everybody will actively or proactively be involved in research. I would like to recommend that everybody who would like to be part of something that's council is doing, part of the engagement process, please try and be involved as you can. And I think it's already been made, the comments around the table, with trying to reach more individuals that we can, and I'm sure staff will endeavour to do that, but as I've already reiterated, sometimes we will not reach everybody when it comes to research. But I do have every faith that our staff will endeavour to do so. Thank you, and thank you very much for the report.
Councillor Posselt, I think you've spoken.
Lord Mayor, there's been some pretty serious allegations levelled at me in this meeting, and I was wondering if anybody of our officers would like to respond to those. I can't because I've spoken.
Councillor Posselt, I'm not sure you've been specifically named.
That's not correct, Lord Mayor. I have been named as the lead petitioner and accused by multiple of my colleagues.
I think my understanding is that's not a problem.
Well, that's right, and that's why I'd like officers to respond to that in the public domain, because there's accusations that it's a very serious matter.
I'll see whether the CEO wants to do that. CEO, did you want to talk about that at all? Or you've kind of been asked a bit of a question, I guess, but did you?
Look, it's not a matter that it's a matter for the individual councillor to make a decision as to whether they have a conflict or not. Clearly in this case, the decision was made by individuals that they don't, and it's really not for others to question that in the forum. So.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just a question on that, because I did raise this as a potential concern, but a question for you to be appropriate officer, because I've sought advice when it comes to interacting with petitions, and the advice that I've received back is that when matters come before council, elected members are required to bring an open and unbiased mind to the debate and to their vote. And the item that we're about to vote on directly references and names verbatim a petition by name. And you can look at the petition and see the lead petition that's printed there.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I would just...
I'm not comfortable with this, Councillor Coates, because you've already spoken and this is going way off topic. So I'm going to suggest that we move on now. And if we want to have a workshop discussion about this to remind ourselves of what the Local Government Act says, which I think is a lot different to how it's being portrayed in lots of respects, I'd suggest we do that at a later date. So what I'm going to do now to avoid sort of completely throwing out meeting procedures is we put this matter to the vote.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Meeting procedures 2015, 23 point of order. If the council is of the opinion that a meeting procedure is contrary to the Act or those regulations, I believe there is a conflict. You need to use your powers to remove.
It's not. No, it's not. And it wouldn't be in the meeting procedures for me to do anything, Councillor Coates. The meeting procedures say nothing about the chairperson throwing people out or stopping motions, so it's not relevant at all. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands. All those in favour?
In favour, Councillor Dutta, Councillor Purcell, Councillor Lohberger, Councillor Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
And against?
Alderman Zurko. Councillor Elliott, is your hand up or down? Councillor Elliott's hand is up. Councillor Coates. Alderman Bloomfield. So that is carried 6-5.
Okay, we're moving on now to item 11, which is the annual plan progress report. Any discussions or comments? Moved by Councillor Lohberger, second by Deputy Lord Mayor. Any discussion or comments or questions?
Lord Mayor, just to clarify, this has only been noted. We're not taking any action. Is that correct?
I'm noting an update.
Thank you very much.
All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 12 is the proposed delegation for planning. Would someone like to move that?
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. Alderman Zurko.
Yeah, look, Lord Mayor, I actually welcome this delegation for the officers to allow an extension of time for a further 2 years. I actually, there's a reality at the moment. I think we all understand how the economic nature of the state is, the country. Its building is actually very expensive and for a lot of people to build and all that. And I actually want to firstly ask a question in regards to this. Is it a possibility, through you, to the acting director, right? Through you to the acting director, is it a possibility that the planners can provide more than 2 years extension on planning? If not, can we give the delegation also, if they need to give another further, that they're delegated to have that as well? Mr. Noy, if you can answer the first question, because I know you can't. It's under the Act, but I'm getting to a point. It's all right. Look. I did a question before, Lord Mayor. I was just making sure that everyone understood it too. I would like to sort of, because this to me means that the council officers are allowed an extension of time for developers, right? I take that as a once-off, but there could be under certain circumstances where they've given a 2-year, and I'll give some examples. And one of them was the Myer proposal. There was a little argument about what was substantive commencement, what wasn't substantive commencement, and all that. And then there's been other examples about, what is defined, where it can be sort of demonstrated. If some developer comes forward and says, "Look, I need another 12 months or 6 months or whatever have you," because I assure you, trying to get people to build, trying to source materials, it's a real problem. That's why we've got no cranes in the sky. And all I'd like to do is, if I could put a minor amendment to this, that that council officers also have a delegation, should they need to give a further extension after the first 2-year period. In other words, they give the 2 years, they have an opportunity to give them another 6 months, 2 years, or whatever have you. That way, they're just saves us coming back to council and arguing the point here at council, where there could be very good reasons that is being provided to the planning department as to why they can give another 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years. It's only to help the situation, Lord Mayor. That's all I'm trying to do.
Okay, we might want to get some advice on that, but is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Dutta.
Lord Mayor. Just about
Councillor
that matter. I'm just reading, we currently have a delegation to grant 2 extensions of time, allowing for up to 6 years of total for the life of the permit. If this delegation is granted, the one that we're debating on the papers, that will allow council officers to grant the 3rd extension, which I assume will take us to 8 years, is that correct?
Mr Noy?
Yes, certainly that's my understanding under those circumstances. So, and we only have the ability to extend consistent with LUPA, not beyond that.
Great, no, thank you. I'm just seeking clarification.
Okay, if there's any further... we need... seconder for... we've got that. On the Alderman Zuko's amendment, excuse me.
Sorry, was it an amendment from Alderman Zuko?
It was. Would you like to remind the elected members again of what that is?
Just to allow the officers to, so the amendment is that the delegation to council officers provides them with an opportunity to further extend, subject to meeting the Act. Okay, how's that? So, in other words, hopefully I'm saying it right. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, but more than 8 years, Alderman Zuko?
It's not about 8 years. The first 2 years are normal, standard, right? All I'm getting at is there could be developments out there, as we well know. We've been going through a serious stage. There could be developments out there that probably used up their period that some are not, Look, I know 2 developers that have pulled the pin on years of work, right? But because they're going, oh, look, I couldn't be bothered going back to get another extension, right? But if the availability's there, they might reconsider that work. And there is, sorry I'm making, but I drive up and down Burnett Street. There's a development, housing development there that's been approved, and I've seen no work to it. And there's a number of them around the place. That's the point I'm getting at. So just to give the power to the officers, if they need to give another extension, subject to meeting the requirements under the Act. That's all.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I think that's clear now. So, but just to be, it just sounds like it's a fairly open-ended delegation, Alderman Zuko, you're proposing. Basically, so sort of no end point.
It's not a one-off. What I'm saying is they've got an opportunity. Sorry, Lord Mayor. The way it reads here in this report, they can only do it once. What I'm saying is, because it says here, the purpose of the report is to respect a delegation of the council officer to allow an extension of time to developers, right? I'd rather that to allow council officers to provide extension of time to developers. That way it's not an and, they can provide it. Hopefully that might fix it. I don't know.
Before we go on with the debate on the amendment, I think I just might need to ask the officers to clarify what we're voting on here, because the way I read it is we've currently got 2 extensions that can be delegated to officers, and we're saying they can have a 3rd. So, but Alderman Zuko's of the view that this is 1 extension. Mr. Noy, could you clarify for us all?
Yeah, look, I'd like to clarify what the Act allows for. It says the further extension of the permit. So my reading of that, and Mr Young has got an alternative view, that implies singular extension of time, not multiple extensions of time. But I'll Yeah.
So how would this work, Mr. Noy? How do you get your 8 years of extra
Yeah, so
time?
we could extend
once.
Yeah,
for 8
once.
years.
Yeah, and we would do that for normally we would do that for the maximum period of time, which would be a further 2 years, giving you an overall permit time frame of 8 years.
Okay. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just speaking to the amendment just on the basis of what Mr Noy has just said and in line with what the Act says, which is the Act says the further extension of the permit. And so I'd like to read out what it says at 2.2. Council officers currently have a delegation to grant the first 2 extensions of time, so allowing the 6 years in total for the life of the permit. If this delegation is granted, then it would allow council officers to also grant the 3rd extension of time, which then takes it up to the 8 years. I find that, on the basis of this qualified advice that's come to us about this particular delegation, not only in line with the Act, but what has also been reiterated to us by Mr Noy, and as such, that's a total of 8 years, and so I see it very difficult for me to support this amendment.
Mayor, it's up to the seconder, but I'm going to withdraw the amendment. Couldn't be bothered.
Are you happy to withdraw the amendment?
I wasn't too clear of what was said. Can you please repeat that, Alderman Zuko?
I'm withdrawing the amendment. I couldn't be bothered.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Councillor Harvey, did you want to speak on the substantive matter now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy with the 2 extensions that they have the right to, 3 + 3, and an additional 2 years. I don't think I'd like to leave it open-ended for extensions forevermore. The question I have, though, is what happens when there's amendments to the planning scheme? Once you've got your development application, once that's been completed, is it updated with each extension?
Mr Noy?
Yeah, through you, Lord Mayor, the delegation doesn't allow the officers to use that delegation where there's been a substantial shift in the policy position that might be a change that may have changed the outcome of that planning decision. So under those circumstances, we would put those matters before council and the council can make a determination. And we have done that in previous instances, and the policy position has changed, and council has, in certain circumstances, agreed to that extension, notwithstanding the changes, and in other circumstances has refused to extend. So it just depends on the circumstances of the change in the policy position.
So just to clarify that, it could be the first 3-year extension, there's been a change in policy, so we may or may not extend it, or are they, as of right, to extend the first 2?
Council has a right to agree to the extension regardless of the policy position, but it's ultimately dependent on the specific merits of the proposal.
Yeah, sure, okay. All right, look, I'm happy to support this. I think it's reasonable. So 3, and an extra 2. And if there's any issues with it, it could be revisited through the council in order to clarify if there are additional standards that have been included in the planning scheme. Yep.
I'd just like to correct one thing. In relation to the timeframes, the initial permit is for 2 years. Then the legislation allows us to extend that for a further 2 years, and this latest change allows a further 2 years. So it's not 3, 3. 2.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Director.
8 years.
Councillor Posselt.
I'll take the expertise. Thank you, Lord Mayor. No issues with the policy. It seems that the original motion does what Alderman Zuko is intending to ask us to approve with his amendment.
Clarify that, if I may. My name's been mentioned.
Not at this stage, I think, Alderman Zuko. Maybe you can later. Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, so I think this actually does what Alderman Zirko wants, which is fine and good. I was just wondering whether or not there's a way that the council or the planning authority can be notified when this delegation is triggered, just so that we're aware. It's good for us to have line of sight over these types of things, because we get a lot of questions, particularly about vacant development sites from the community, like what's happening with this site. It's good for us to know. Is that possible?
CEO.
Thanks. Thanks, Lord Mayor. Yes, certainly. I mean, you can include it as a condition of the delegation that we do report upon any time it's exercised, and we're certainly able to incorporate that.
Would you want that as an amendment?
Just a supplementary, if I can clarify from the CEO, is that a lot of work for you? Would it just come as a as-needs basis to planning for us for line of sight? Would that be the mechanism you'd foresee?
Yeah, look, it's not a lot of work for us to do, but I mean, if you want it as a condition, it needs to be part of the resolution to make it so.
Thank you, CEO. Lord Mayor, I would move that amendment, as said from the CEO, it doesn't require much work and it gives us line of sight so that we can be responsive to community questions about particular development sites. I don't think it would be too frequent we would see this, but I might just clarify again, how often are we anticipating seeing this level of extension?
Well, that's probably a question more for the Director than me. So.
Yeah, look, we receive extensions of time on a regular basis. I think in this instance, you'd be only necessarily interested in those applications that have come before council, and those applications are fairly rare. So if it was limited to those that you've already seen and hence known about, then I think it's a reasonable request and not an onerous task.
Excellent. Well, given that advice, I will move that if that's clear to officers what the amendment, the bones of the amendment is. And ask my colleagues to consider.
Okay, so that's seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor, and it's suggesting that council be informed of extensions of time on matters where the council has made a decision on a development.
I'm actually specifically interested in the 6 to 8 year extension, not every extension. This is those sites that sit dormant for almost a decade, so that we have some idea of what's going on, rather than the initial 2 that are already in place.
It's not an issue for us to have it in our procedure that when we exercise the discretion, we report it to the council. There's mechanisms for us to do it. So, again, we can comfortably accommodate that if that's what the council want to see.
Okay, is everyone clear on that amendment? That's seconded by Deputy. Would anyone like to speak to that amendment? Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously.
I just want to ask a question through you to the CEO. Can the council write to the minister seeking that relevant sections of the Act are set aside?
No.
I think we've done so in the past.
No, I don't. Well, if the legislation, you can't pick and choose whether we apply it or not.
Yeah, we have written. Anyway, could the council write to the minister seeking that? I'll ask the question differently.
We can write. Yes, we can.
And that's basically what I was trying to get at. If it was something so important, right? It wasn't about helping me.
Okay. For special occasions.
Can I want a point of explanation. You don't have to give it to me. But look, as I try to explain, there could be a development out there, in particular a housing development, that the proponent right at the moment is saying, I can't build it. And there's a few out there. But it might take them a few more years before they think. It could be 8 years, could be 10. At the end of the day, don't put them through the process again, because they've got to go through a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 process. It's already expensive enough to build now.
Thank you, Alderman Zirko. So I think the CEO is indicating that if those examples are brought up, that the...
I'll have to draft a letter. I think I understand, but I'll catch up with the Alderman offline, but we can certainly draft a letter to that effect.
Thank you.
Although, yeah, CEO, sorry, can I just clarify? Is that, I think Alderman Zurko was looking at, we'd make that case on an individual basis.
That's right.
Yeah. So we might not have that case right now. So,
Yeah, okay.
so we can, let's discuss it some more.
We can really only note it, in that case. And,
Yeah. We'll note it that, and Alderman Zurko, if there were ones that you were aware of, maybe you could alert the CEO to those and that could come forward to council. All right. So we will put that recommendation as amended for item 12. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. We're now moving on to motions. So we have one from Councillor, or two from Councillor Oberger. Councillor Oberger, would you like to start with your first
Lord
one?
Mayor, I wasn't going to declare an interest, but anything to do with Cornelian Bay, I'm just going to declare an interest. I know we're not going to do anything, particularly in the action, but I don't want to...
It's okay. Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Right, let's start. I'll introduce the motion. So the Cornelian Bay track, it's one of Hobart's...
Mayor.
Thank you. It's one of Hobart's most popular and beautiful short walks. Goes through a rare remaining piece of coastal bushland on the estuary. It's one of the last, I think, that runs between Cornelian Bay boat sheds and the lower entrance of the Botanical Gardens, although it doesn't finish there, it finishes across the highway, so it's not connected. The track is heavily used by the public, but a lengthy section has been closed since late last year due to a storm surge damage on a short part of the track that's quite exposed. It runs just above the high tide line. The track also traverses quite an unusual parcel of land. It's owned by the Royal Tasmanian Botanical Gardens, but it's cut off from the gardens by the Lower Domain Highway and the Intercity Cycleway, and there are no direct crossing points between the Botanical Gardens and this track. The current arrangements for the track are also quite confusing. The Botanical Gardens owns the land, interestingly enough, but it asserts that the track was built by the council. I note the council staff have responded to this motion saying they are unsure who built the track, but I can report that the Botanical Gardens are insistent that the track was actually built by council staff. So we find ourselves in a bit of a bind here. The track's unlikely to be repaired and reopened until the land tenure is clarified, and all those people who use this track are caught up in this same bind. So we do really need to address this issue somehow. In my opinion, it would be far more logical if the council owned the parcel of land and the heavily used walking track that runs through it, which we actually have signed ourselves. It is our signage on it. And I actually understand the Botanical Gardens are very open to that discussion taking place. I have spoken to them. So look, I'm calling tonight for a report back to elected members, just looking into the proposed future arrangements for the continued use of the Cornelian Bay track, which includes including clarification of any of the land tenure issues that currently exist on this site, and also options to repair or otherwise remediate the damaged section of the track. It is a significant piece of community infrastructure and it is heavily used, and I would just ask that my colleagues support this first step. It's only a first step, there's no financial implications as yet, just in trying to address the issues that have led to the indefinite closure of the track. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lohberger. Discussion? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was only out looking at that track last Sunday. I run on that track for the last 25 years every Sunday, pretty much. And it has had, I'm curious to see, because read this, it has had continuous surges and waves, a lot from the Mona Ferry I see actually in evidence happening. Putting that to one side, it happens. And there's just been a process of whoever's been doing it, I don't know if it's council or the gardens, it gets done up. It's not a big deal. The report hopefully will show that. And it is gravel. To go anything beyond that, we're getting into battery point construction stuff that's just going to get out of control. It's not a huge expense, and hopefully the report will show that. I don't think we should be jumping at shadows. As I said, it's been happening for at least 25 years that I'm aware of on an almost weekly basis, and it should be an inexpensive, if we just approach this from a reasonable angle to say it's going to be continuous maintenance, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Further discussion? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, not really a huge amount of discussion. I don't profess any expert knowledge on the governance of this track in Royal Botanical Gardens. It's just slightly unclear to me in the motion, so it's more of a question to be motional and seconded. But with the report that comes back, I guess I'll just ask the question, is it envisaged that report would also then go to the appropriate committee so we can receive the advice and have it sort of publicly thrashed out before it comes back to this decision-making body? Is that the intent? It's sort of hard to read in there, just says request a report, but where does the report go, I guess, is my question.
Well, the report, I prefer it to come back to us. I mean, those other arrangements are not really my business. But I'm just putting up a motion asking for this council to approve a report showing the costs of the repair and maybe dealing with the land tenure issues.
Okay, no, fair enough, thank you.
If that committee wants to call it in, it probably can, if they actually want to.
It wouldn't be my committee, but sustainability and diversity and biodiversity, I suspect.
But yeah, I mean, that's a different question in my opinion. But I suspect if committees do want to call it in, then they can, these sort of things.
All right, any further discussion? Councillor Posselt.
Councillor Lohberger, just a question through the chair, if that's in order. Does the current track connect all the way to the boat sheds? I've never actually been on this track. I know where it is, but I've never been on it.
It goes behind them.
It does connect all the way.
So there's a car park for the boat sheds, and the track starts there, and then it runs right behind them. There is one track goes down. There is a side track that will take you down to the far end of the boat sheds. But I think the track that takes you to the close end is actually a separate little track.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, look, I think this is an excellent suggestion. I think it's worth putting council officers on notice of my position on land tenure because it gives them an indication of the council's appetite. I think that it's a no-brainer that we take it over. It's one of those things where who's going to do it? Questions always land on councils. It's just how it is. Unfortunately, it's part of our role, but it certainly doesn't make any sense that the Royal Botanic Gardens somehow have to use their limited funds and grant money to maintain a bit of coastal foreshore that's separated by a rail reserve and a highway from the gardens and adjacent to council land. It's just one of these kind of historical nonsenses. So I fully support this. I fully support us taking it over, should that be the recommendation. And any further enhancements that could be made to that track for walkability, especially in light of Councillor Kelly's comments about coastal erosion, I think would be worthy of consideration as well, given the work that we're doing around Cornelian Bay at the present moment in time. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'll be really quick. I'd just like to commend Councillor Lohberger for bringing this particular motion, and similar to Councillor Kelly, I used to run along there too, probably not for the length of time that Councillor Kelly has, and so well done on that. I walked there on Sunday and did notice the various different signs that are on there as well, so I'm really interested to see what this report unveils. So thank you very much for bringing it.
Okay, there's no further discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Now we have item 14, which is another motion from Councillor Lohberger. Oh, sorry. Before you start, if you could, we'll ask Alderman Zurko to come back.
Bell's gone. Bell's gone. Ring the bell.
Okay, Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to talk about the recent influx of rabbits into Hobart.
Second by Deputy Lord Mayor.
Which I'm sure we're all aware of. The state government is ultimately responsible for rabbit control in Tasmania, but it has remained silent while a massive influx of rabbits has occurred throughout the city of Hobart. The influx is unprecedented in recent times. I cannot remember seeing rabbits in these sorts of areas ever, and I've lived here for 50 years. I've spoken to a number of ratepayers who've lived in their house for decades and who have never seen rabbits in the area and who are seeing them now. There are reports of large numbers of rabbits appearing right across multiple suburbs, along the intercity cycleway, on the Queen's Domain, and I've even seen a photo of a rabbit in the CBD in Collins Street. The government is well aware of this problem. It oversaw a poison baiting operation on the Ogilvy campus of Hobart High School during the Christmas holiday break, but it still said nothing, despite being responsible for laying the baits through the Department of Natural Resources and Environment, and also being the landowner that requested the baiting operation in the first place through the Department of Education. There is no doubt that something does need to be done about rabbits. And while nobody likes poison, the need to use poison baits to control rodents and rabbits is well understood. There just is no other way of controlling these creatures. However, there does need to be far better communication from the government about what it is currently doing in Hobart. This includes explaining what will happen between now, and the promised release of calicivirus sometime during autumn later this year. Also letting the relevant council know what it is doing before it does it, because I don't believe we were notified about the poison baiting operation at Ogilvy. And finally, issuing warnings to local residents and the local media, or even through the local media if that's how they prefer to do it, before the rabbit baiting operations take place within our city boundary. I would make the point that baiting operations occur regularly in the country. There's probably between a dozen and 100 residents within a kilometre of many of those operations, or the bulk of them. If you do an operation like that in the city, there will be tens of thousands of residents within a kilometre. It really is a different kettle of fish, and I think it should be treated differently. So look, I'm calling on my colleagues just to support this motion, just to call on the state government to communicate better with the residents of Hobart about the rabbit problem in the city, and to better warn local residents when large poison baiting programs take place near their homes or suburbs. Thank you, Chair.
I just have a question through if
Alderman Zurko.
Councillor Lohberger would like to answer the question. Has Councillor Lohberger written to the relevant minister about this and asked the relevant minister the question?
Which question, sorry? What is the question?
Well, the question is, what is the government doing in regards to baiting and to notify the actual what's in the motion here? And I'm asking that on the basis that, considering it is a state government matter, the question I'm asking is, have you written to the minister about it, right? And has the relevant minister responded at all?
No, I haven't, because I'm asking the Mayor to do that. That's what the motion does. I'm aware of what the government is doing. They are going to be laying Khaleesi, as far as they say, sometime in autumn, when conditions are right. And they've also revealed that they weren't able to lay Khaleesi baits, well, to actually introduce Khaleesi last year, which they are stating is the cause of the problem, although I don't know, I've been seeing rabbits around for a lot longer than that, personally, in some areas. So yeah, that's the answer.
Any further discussion? Councillor Elliott, you're up first.
Oh, thank you. I've been noticing rabbits on our nature strip, and I just wanted to send out a thanks to Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail for keeping the nature strips in check, given it's something we've handed over responsibility to do it. So thanks to the rabbits.
Further discussion? Sorry, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. This is a timely reminder, because I think we're all seeing rabbits absolutely everywhere. And just at the start of the Hobart Rivulet track last week, or a couple of weeks back, I saw 5 little heads, little tiny kittens, appear out of a hole just near the start. They were really cute, as I bashed them with a stick. No, but I didn't. But it's really disturbing that the number of rabbits are just so thick everywhere. And recently I was in the north of the state, and I had reason to drive back early in the morning. And it wasn't just a handful of rabbits. There was literally tens and tens and tens all along the road. So there's actually a population explosion at the moment across the whole island. And calicivirus, I think, will knock it back, but there's no overall strategy to really deal with rabbits into the future. We can knock them back, but then if we don't get the calicivirus, because I don't think we make it in Tasmania, so that's something we need to consider as well. You might like to include in the letter to the state government or to biosecurity, are they considering producing it here, or do we have to rely on stocks from the mainland? Because when we don't get it, this is what happens. And all along the Hobart Rivulet, there's rabbits everywhere. And I've got them in my backyard, or had them in my backyard. I had to rabbit-proof the backyard in Davey Street as well. They were coming in and devouring the vegetables in the backyard. So it is a serious problem. What are we going to do long term, though? And I think I've actually seen one in the Lord Mayor's garden down here as well. So it is a serious problem. What's the long-term solution? Calicivirus, we can do it every year, but it's never going to solve the rabbit problem. So I'm really curious to see what the long-term strategy is to eradicate rabbits from the state, and that might be a rabbit virus at some point in time. So it's an interesting situation we're in, but like I said, there's just literally dozens of them all along the Hobart Rivulet, Cornelian Bay, both sides of the Brooker Highway, heaps of rabbits. And when you walk your dogs along there, I put them on the lead now of an evening because I don't want them getting into trouble chasing rabbits across the roads and things. But yeah, so I commend Ben for raising this, but it is a big issue and it needs ultimately a bigger solution than just calicivirus. What's next after calici?
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, it's an interesting topic. I mean, I'm just a bit concerned with our overreach here, maybe not. I mean, the proliferation of potoroos, wallabies and kangaroos now in urban streets as well. The rear of the State Cinema, Elizabeth Street, we had a kangaroo there not long ago, hopping around and it charged up Elizabeth Street. They're prolific through residences in West Hobart now, right getting down into the city. So we talk about the poisoning and all that with them. I'm concerned that that could cause problems with that as well. So perhaps that should be thrown into the mix as well there. It's a similar circumstance to what Councillor Lohberger mentions, and exactly the same situation. So they may be not defined as pests, but they're, I don't know, it's a big topic once you start lifting the lid on the invasion of these animals into our public space, and perhaps we should look at it a bit bigger than just the rabbits.
Councillor Kelly, I think if you were going to propose that, that would be quite a substantial amendment that some of us might not agree with, to extend it to native animal baiting as well.
Yeah, I just think that they might dismiss it if we're not sort of contextualising the whole thing in its wholeness. They might view this as just a sort of random comment. I'm happy for the report, the correspondence to go there, and in principle it's a good idea. So look, I'm going to support it, but I'm just putting it out there that there is a bigger problem than just the rabbits.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I might not have taken this path of putting a motion in, but I defend the councillor's right to do so. And look, I think it's quite fascinating to read the response and the response from the staff, and I see no reason having this before me to vote it down. I think, one of the interesting inferences to draw from this is how successful in previous years the calicivirus has been, because as I understand it, NRE not able to obtain it for whatever reason. I assume it's not their fault, but how much of a difference that's made. So that sort of shows how successful it has been in the past. Probably an element of, we've had a fair bit of spring rain as well. But look, I guess my observation would be that writing the letter is something we can do, but potentially this might be an area that we as a council can look to do our part as well. Obviously a lot of this talks about the fact that residents just weren't aware and how the government communicates with media and with residents. I guess us as a council, we run newsletters, we run social media sites, have a lot of coverage in Hobart. We ourselves are all community advocates. Yes, we bring stuff to this chamber, but we also bring stuff from this chamber back out to the community. And, I think this might be something, I'm not proposing it here and now, but for the chair of the appropriate committee to take on as potentially something you can talk about with the committee members and get some advice. And, I think a lot of people are frankly a little bit scared when it comes to dealing with animals or pests. What do they do if they see a lot? Who do they talk to? How do they get information? I suspect the number of people that look up City of Hobart communication channels is a lot higher than those who look up NRE Tasmania. So, that's a good outcome just by virtue of bringing this motion. So, look, in that regard, I thank the member. That said, I guess when you do these things publicly, there's always that risk, but it gets misconstrued as somehow an attack or something, and I'm sure the public servants at Natural Resources Environment Tasmania don't consider it that way. I suspect they just think, well, we tried our best to get the calicivirus, we just couldn't obtain it. Naturally, of course, there's going to be an explosion of rabbits. So, look, having gone down that rabbit hole, I'll leave that as my contribution.
Alderman Bloomfield.
I live on a property and I have done for about 20 years, and I can tell you that the number of rabbits and wallabies is a lot to do with mild winters and availability of food. We've had a number of mild winters in a row, and currently we have a lot of availability of food. As a result, the numbers explode, and absolutely things like the calcivirus will actually attend to these numbers, but it's absolutely the scope of state government. And I worry that when we keep on putting motions like this through our council, we give the community a misperception that we are responsible for this. We're not. We can't be. We already have a remit that is so large, and we struggle to actually attend to that this particular element, which is absolutely not our remit to know how and where we should do baiting on people's private property. You know, I appreciate that it's a problem, but it's a fluctuating problem from year to year. One of the things that I've noted is that wallabies used to be about this big, now they're about twice the size, and if they hit your car, it's a lot more damage than we used to, because they don't tend to get culled during the cold winters like they used to. So with the rabbit numbers, same deal. I wouldn't say they get larger, but they're more prolific. So frankly, while I commend the comments and so forth, I would really suggest that this is something that we should be encouraging any members of the public to go direct to state government and state their case and issues, than coming through us, simply because we already have enough to do looking after our community, and this is another element that we simply cannot take on over our shoulder.
Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A few concerning comments this evening. I certainly have no problem walking and chewing gum, and when chewing gum is in the form of a letter, I think that we have a very important part to play, and I believe it's written into the Act as well that we are community advocates. We are in the community, we see the community, we should be writing to State Parliament on matters that affect our community. That's what we should do, and we should be advocating for better outcomes for our community when they are not the immediate jurisdiction or responsibility of local government or this council. In this instance, Councillor Lohberger has noticed, as have many people in our community, that there is a massive increase in the rabbit population. I too have seen this in West Hobart alone, and he is deemed it important enough to bring to this council, and I would commend him for that action, and I would encourage any councillor around this table who picks up a community issue to bring it to either the council table or to our council officers through the EM request system. That's part of our job. If you notice that there's a blocked stormwater drain, you should be reporting it to officers to have it attended to. We're the eyes and the ears of the community. We're not just decision makers. And I actually think this is a really excellent motion. But we also have heard some expert comments on animals in our city. Potentially a request for native animals to be treated in the same manner as an invasive species that's declared as a either class 3, 4, 5 or 6 invasive animal by the Australian Biosecurity Act. I think we need to be pretty careful when we're getting into the territory of working out how to control animals, that we are decision makers when it comes to this. We can be advocates, but we're certainly not experts that should be advocating for native fauna to be treated in the same manner as an invasive pest. But I would ask Councillor Lohberger whether he would consider the suggestion from Councillor Harvey to include reference to us producing calicivirus here in Tasmania. I think that it's actually a very good suggestion from Councillor Harvey, and it goes to some of the systemic issues that we see being an island that lead to, you know, small issues that we notice on the streets, but when we don't address it at the very top end of the root cause, I do think that's a really good example of a potential root cause that could be addressed. So I'd ask you if you're willing to consider that and incorporate it into the motion.
I'm happy to include a third section just asking about future production of calicivirus and whether we can bring it on the island. I think the Deputy Lord Mayor seconded it, so are you okay with that too? Right, the seconder is okay with that as well.
Yeah,
it's okay?
It'll just be in the letter.
Okay, fabulous. Excellent.
So do we need to vote on that if it's been included?
included in
I
it?
think we voted on it as part of the motion. Yeah. So-
Point of clarification, Lord Mayor, if the movers included it, the seconder includes
Yes,
it.
it's part of the motion, yeah, that we will now vote on. Is there any further comments?
Thank you for accepting that suggestion, and thank you, Councillor Harvey, for bringing the suggestion. Again, it's a really good example of how we can actually get pragmatic results around this table when we try.
Okay, further discussion on this motion? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Responses to questions without notice. Would someone like to move that they be received and noted? Councillor Posselt, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 16 is questions without notice. Would anyone like to ask any questions?
Be received, noted.
Sorry?
It's questions without notice.
No, this is if you've got any questions without notice. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question, and I don't know if this is in our particular jurisdiction, but the cruise ships that are in town and the smoke that they belly out, whose responsibility is that? Can the council take some action, or it's not our jurisdiction?
Mr. Noy?
Yeah, yes, through you, Lord Mayor, this question has been asked on a number of occasions and we've provided a fairly detailed response to that, so we can extract that information for Councillor Dutta, if you'd like.
Lord Mayor, you haven't finished off item 15, I don't think, which is acknowledging the previous... Did we do that? Responses to questions? We did do that. I must have tuned out at that point. Yep.
Okay, any other questions without notice? Councillor Elliott?
Yes, please. I have several, so I'll apologise in advance and I'm happy to provide them in writing. I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, and I apologise if we missed it, but can we get the data that's being captured by the bike counter on Argyle Street? I think we said about it coming through on a monthly basis. I was just wondering if that's starting to flow through yet.
Mr. Noy?
Yes, Mayor, I think the commitment was that we would be providing it after a 12-month period, but we will look at what we can release through the process. So that's in relation to Argyle and Campbell Street.
Yeah, I definitely said about monthly, and I think there was an agreement that it would come through monthly.
Thanks. Well, I'll discuss with the officers because it would be good if we can provide more concurrent data because there is an interest in what's happening. So we'll talk to the office and work out a way that we can do that.
Thank you. And on the same topic, I noticed a council employee counting bikes on Collins Street today. So I was hoping we could get elected members could get a copy of the results from that counting observation exercise that happened today on Collins Street.
Mr. Noy?
Yeah, look, I know we have given a commitment that we would be providing that data after the 2-month period prior to the installation. So we expect to provide and collate all of that relevant data around mid-March.
So that's the counter I saw today. Is that part of obtaining baseline figures?
I'm not sure exactly what the officers were doing, but I do know.
Spoke to him and he said he was counting bikes.
Yeah, so that would be what it's there for, what they're counting for.
I'm still getting reports that there's issues with our parking infrastructure, and I just wanted to get on the record if that is all functioning well, the sensors and machines. Is everything going okay with our parking monitoring infrastructure?
Yes, so look, as far as I'm aware, it is. I know that the contract has been finalised and they've achieved the error rate, which is consistent with what we've always had. So we are working with staff and continuing to there is always like sensors that are faulty or there's problems that arise, and so it's about making sure that we can deal with those in a timely way, and that's more people matter than a system matter. So we are working through that. So I would say that the system is compliant and is working, but it's around our processes getting better around how we manage the problems when we come across them. So.
Okay, thank you. And how are we going with getting legal advice on the legal expenses matter raised from the McCulloch case? What's the timeline around that?
So we've engaged Through
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah,
through
it was in the elected member bulletin, wasn't it?
Yeah, so look, it's imminent. We've had to engage with the King's Council they are now to be able to provide the level of advice that we need, because there's some contrary advice or some alternative advice that has been provided in the state at the moment. So we're working with LGAT, with a legal provider and also a King's Council to be able to. So it's imminent. Okay. They are working on it now. So hopefully we'll get it in the next couple of weeks.
That's great, thank you. And this one's a detailed question, and I'll send it through. How many letters has the council or its legal representatives sent to businesses, organisations or individuals in the past 5 years that focus on or refer to defamation and or the moderation of social media comments? I'm aware of 7, but I just wanted to get a figure of how many letters we have sent. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Very simple question. Can we be provided with some advice or the opportunity to discuss the custom and practice of the council shifting the council meeting to a Tuesday when council falls on a public holiday? I understand it's been long-standing, however there might be alternative models such as moving it forward or backwards a week to keep it on Monday where the community expectation is that it lies.
We could certainly look at it. The council obviously endorsed this when we put the schedule up, so I mean we can certainly have a look at different models. I think the schedule has been approved for the balance of this year, but that doesn't mean to say that we can't re-examine it if it's a particular issue. So,
any further questions? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Through you to Mr Noy, just regarding the, tonight we heard in the presentation regarding the stadium, for instance, with the Collins Street bridge that's going to be coming across, which is a major piece of infrastructure. Did I misread? Was that 60 million or something like that? It was huge cost anyway, whatever it is. It's going to have a significant impact on Collins Street. Is this taken into context with the whole Collins Street study with the dual bike lanes and all that? So is that, I see this as a major piece of infrastructure that could have a profound effect on the bike study and experiment. And should this not be considered in a wholeness instead of just doing this piecemeal a little bit up there and then we're going to change some and, oh, by the way, stadium's going to be landing in a few years. Can this be taken into account with the study?
Mr Noy, would you like to respond to that?
Look, I think I might take that one on notice to provide a suitable response.
Any further questions? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, through you to the appropriate officer, and this is just a high-level, broad numbers exercise, but and just for context, we all understand there's been a transformation of the business a move to networks and a reorganisation, a change to the organisation of the council. But I guess, I had raised a question through the requests because I saw a job advertisement, but I was aware, but we did around redundancies as well last year. And I was just wondering if it would be possible to get updated figures around FTE and how many new roles have been created or new people have been appointed to existing roles, just sort of over the last 6 months. Thank you.
Any further questions? I have 2, if I can, and I can send these through as well. Can the council get an outline of the previous program that the council ran some years ago now to subsidise residents to buy and install water tanks? And can the answer outline why council ran this program and why it decided to stop it?
Take it on notice, but we can certainly do that.
And my second question is, what is the most recent data on how many vacant properties there are in the City of Hobart? And what would be required for council to be able to collect this data in partnership with TasWater on an annual basis?
Again, I think we'd need to take that on notice, but we can certainly come back to you, Lord Mayor.
All right, if there's no further questions without notice, I'd ask that somebody... Oh, sorry, we've got to move to receive and note the questions taken on notice during debate. from their last meeting, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Posselt. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. We'll now, if I could get a motion to move to the closed portion of the meeting from Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Posselt, that we move into the closed portion. All those in favour say aye.